Welcome back to Movies Outpost. Today we'll be watching the first 2 seasons of the series titled Twisted Metal, and let me tell you, the word twisted is perfect for this series, as I'm sure you're about to see for yourself. If you like guns, explosions, more explosions, and even more explosions, this action-packed psychotic series does not and will not disappoint you. Without further ado, make sure you don't miss a second and, as always, enjoy the recap. In a crumbling future, 2 decades after a catastrophic digital collapse brought the world to its knees, humanity is still clawing at the remnants of civilization. It began when a mysterious, unstoppable bug swept across the globe, short-circuiting every computer system in existence. With technology shattered overnight, the world descended into anarchy. Power grids blinked out, order collapsed, and cities barricaded themselves behind towering walls to keep the chaos out. Those locked within the fortified cities clung to some semblance of life, while those left outside, the criminals, outlaws, scavengers, devolved into a lawless horde preying on the weak and each other. But floating between these fractured worlds was a third kind of person. The daring, reckless, and slightly crazy couriers known as milkmen. Among them is our main man named John Doe, a sharp-tongued courier risking his life traversing the wasteland to deliver packages from city to city, all for the promise of commissions and maybe, just maybe, a better life. The real threat for milkmen isn't deadlines or weather, it's the scavengers, or as John calls them, vultures, lurking in the shadows of ruined highways and abandoned checkpoints, waiting to pounce, steal, and kill. During one of these runs, John's life takes an unexpected turn when he arrives at New San Francisco, one of the last functioning city-states, and is summoned by their powerful new COO, Raven. The invitation alone puts him on edge, and his suspicions are confirmed when Raven reveals why she wants to meet him. She doesn't just want a package delivered, she wants it transported all the way from New Chicago, a distant, dangerous city across lethal, lawless terrain no sane person would cross alone. Raven knows it's a deadly mission, so she dangles something far more valuable than credits or supplies, a shot at redemption and belonging. She offers John a glimpse of life on the inside, security, community, a home behind the walls. The lucky few live almost like the old world never ended, only now with stricter rules and armed guards on every corner. Tempted by the chance to escape his dangerous existence, John agrees to the job. But before setting out, he's invited to dinner with Raven's family, her supposed husband Noah, and their newborn baby Dove. The encounter strikes an oddly sentimental chord for John, especially Dove. In his reality, he's never seen a baby before. The moment stirs buried memories of his own family, their faces now preserved only in the worn photograph he carries everywhere. Because nothing says emotional trauma like dinner with strangers and a side of existential dread, John embarks on his mission with a strict 10-day deadline, the window for his escape closing with every tick of the clock. There's just one small problem. He has no idea what's inside the package, and if this world has taught him anything, unknown packages usually come with lethal surprises. What John doesn't know is the surprises started long before he left the city. The happy family dinner, a calculated ruse. Noah isn't Raven's husband, Dove isn't their child. It's all smoke and mirrors to manipulate him into doing their dirty work. While John takes to the road, we meet the other characters in the story, specifically a woman named Quiet, a resourceful, sharp-edged survivor with a tragic past trailing behind her. Alongside her is her brother named Loud. And both of them are caught by law enforcement in Nevada, specifically by the merciless Agent Stone, a card-carrying member of the Bratton School of Thinking. Stone operates under one brutal philosophy: stamp out small threats before they grow into big ones. Petty crimes, doesn't matter. To Stone, a spark left unchecked burns the whole house down. Presented with an impossible choice, the siblings face Stone's twisted version of justice. Either one of them dies at his hand or one of them sacrifice themselves to save the other. Loud, desperate to protect Quiet, makes the ultimate sacrifice, choosing death so that she can live. Apparently, family bonding comes with an asterisk in Nevada. Back on the road, John makes a pit stop at the home of his old friend Tommy, hoping to get a map for the journey ahead. But when John mentions his route leads east toward New Chicago, Tommy's mood sours. He warns John that the roads to New Chicago aren't just risky, they're almost certain death. But driven by the promise of a real home, John decides to push forward. The two finally cross paths outside Las Vegas, where John finds himself staring down the barrel of Quiet's gun. It's not hard for him to put the pieces together. The cut-off finger, the blood-streaked clothes, Loud's jacket around her shoulders. Quiet's hurting, and John knows pain when he sees it. But there's no time for bonding because danger is rolling toward them in the form of Sweet Tooth, the deranged, anarchic ruler of Vegas, rumbling closer in his blood-splattered ice cream van with chaos in tow. John, always the hustler, does his best to talk Quiet down, urging her to team up. At least for now, the wasteland's too dangerous to face alone, and with Sweet Tooth approaching, their odds of survival just went from bad to non-existent unless they work together. John and Quiet, forced into an uneasy alliance by circumstance rather than trust, decide to team up against the looming chaotic threat of Sweet Tooth, though their plan immediately falls apart in spectacular fashion when they realize the guns they've pointed at his grotesque ice cream van are completely empty, not a single bullet to their names. Turns out intimidation works better when you actually have ammo. Thinking quickly, Quiet runs to bring around John's most prized possession, his beloved car named Evelyn. It roars onto the scene like a battered but reliable warhorse, but unfortunately for her, only John knows how to tame Evelyn's temperamental engine. With Sweet Tooth closing in fast, they scramble into the car, exchanging seats in a clumsy shuffle before John floors the gas and the chase begins. The pursuit is brutal, with Sweet Tooth gaining the upper hand by puncturing one of Evelyn's tires, sending them skidding into a nearby building. But before we see the aftermath, the story pivots to two unlucky wanderers, Stu and Mike, who have stumbled into the clutches of the Butchers, a savage cannibalistic crew clearly planning to make them the next meal. As Stu and Mike's fate looks sealed, salvation comes crashing in the form of Agent Stone and his militarized team, storming the Butchers' camp in a hail of bullets, Stone always playing the righteous enforcer of law and order. Frees Stu and Mike and offers them a choice: wander alone in the wasteland or join his authoritarian crusade to restore the so-called divided states of America. Faced with the alternative, they choose survival and align themselves with Stone. Back at the crumbling casino, John is patching up Evelyn's punctured tire, while Quiet, ever the opportunist, has other plans. Her betrayal comes swift when she spots Sweet Tooth approaching. Instead of helping, she leaves John to face the deranged clown alone. The fight is as ugly as it is one-sided, with Sweet Tooth easily overpowering John and beating him to a pulp, all while blasting an upbeat Cisco track. For a brief twisted moment they even bond over the music before Sweet Tooth spares John, but not without a condition. John is ordered to attend Sweet Tooth's grand opening show later that night, because nothing screams psychopath like live entertainment after attempted murder. Meanwhile, Stu and Mike's initiation into Stone's ranks begins. Their first task: protect a supply truck from a group ominously labeled as Seagulls. But these are desperate survivors, not scavenging birds. And when they approach the truck for food, Stu hesitates. Mike, however, wastes no time and guns them down, cementing his place in Stone's brutal vision of justice. Back under the flickering lights of Sweet Tooth's tacky post-apocalyptic Vegas, John learns more about his unsettling host. John has amnesia, no memory of his identity or origins. Sweet Tooth, meanwhile, has spent the years since society's collapse marooned in Vegas, spiraling into lonely madness so deep that his best friend is now a brown paper bag named Harold. Vegas, where the shows are bad and the friendships are biodegradable. The situation escalates when Sweet Tooth reveals Quiet, trapped behind glass like a caged animal, intending to starve her into submission or death. John, ever the smooth talker, spots Evelyn's keys dangling from Quiet's possession and convinces Sweet Tooth to let her out, promising it'll give him a bigger audience for his performance. That one-man show turns out to be an agonizing disaster of amateur theatrics that seems to stretch for an eternity.
And for all you lovebirds out there, Las Vegas is still the marriage capital of the world. Time for kisses!
With Sweet Tooth milking every second until he finally leaps off the platform to confront John, demanding feedback.
I loved it.
John's vague compliments fall flat, and Sweet Tooth, machete in hand, looks ready to paint the stage red. Until Quiet unexpectedly speaks. Her first words, sharp and laced with defiance, are a scathing review of the performance, indirectly giving John permission to be brutally honest too.
It sucked.
The hell did you say?
Your performance was dull as water and frankly beneath you.
It works. Sweet Tooth, desperate for genuine criticism, is weirdly pleased, and in a rare deranged show of mercy allows them both to leave alive.
Thanks for being honest.
Fueled by his artistic enlightenment, Sweet Tooth burns down his arcade theater, declaring it's time to take his twisted performance on the road. With the Vegas ordeal behind them, John and Quiet strike a fragile deal. He'll drop her off wherever she needs to go, and after that, they part ways for good. But fate has other plans. On the road, they come across a checkpoint controlled by Stone's men, a barricade not marked on John's map. Ever cautious, John tries to handle it diplomatically. But Quiet's fury boils over when she spots Stone's deputy. Unable to resist, she jumps out to shoot him, only to be tased by Mike. John, scrambling to intervene, follows the same fate, dropped to the ground by Stu's taser. With both of them captured and John's mission still hanging precariously in the balance, the clock keeps ticking. Only 9 days remain to deliver the package and claim the life-changing reward. And at this rate, even Amazon would refuse the delivery. In a flashback set in the chaotic early days of 2002, just as the mysterious bug fried every electronic device across the globe, we see a familiar self-righteous mall cop, a younger Agent Stone, patrolling a collapsing shopping mall. Amid the hysteria, he confronts two terrified women frozen in place as society descends into chaos. Even back then, Stone had a taste for control. Only his badge read mall security instead of savior of civilization, proof that the only thing more dangerous than a man with a gun is a man with a flashlight and no power trip boundaries. Jumping to the present, John and Quiet find themselves shackled and dragged into what can only be described as the DMV from hell. A grim bureaucratic processing center where fugitives like them are forced to walk colored lines, each representing their fate. Right now, they're on the purple line, which by comparison is tolerable. But just a few missteps away lies the dreaded red line, leading straight to a soundproof chamber charmingly nicknamed the Bowl of Screams.
Cool, screams.
Who knew even in the apocalypse the DMV would still be the worst place on Earth? As John and Quiet's fate hangs in the balance, Stu, ever the reluctant pawn in Stone's empire, finds John's faded family photo while cleaning out Evelyn. A quiet reminder that John may not be the outlaw Stone claims but a man clinging to hope. Sadly, Mike, thoroughly marinated in Stone's authoritarianism, seems beyond redemption. Meanwhile, Stone's deputy Shepard rifles through Evelyn and finds something far more incriminating. A custom map designed to dodge every known checkpoint across the divided states. The revelation rattles Stone's inner circle, threatening the control they've worked so hard to maintain. Their facility, cleverly positioned along a river, is already a chokehold for travelers. But Stone casually reveals a new ace, a dam blockade to tighten their grip even further. As John negotiates for their release, Quiet spits directly in Stone's face, shredding any goodwill John had built. Stone, seething, makes it clear he doesn't just want punishment, he wants the mapmaker's identity. A second flashback reveals the roots of Stone's transformation. During the collapse, desperate neighbors, Margie and Rick, rob him for supplies. In Stone's mind, that betrayal cements his belief that only absolute order prevents society from devouring itself. Back in the facility, Stu and Mike hand over forms for John and Quiet to fill out, made all the more excruciating by the loud, repetitive blaring of the Barbie song, a psychological tactic so cruel it could qualify as a war crime.
Barbie, let's go, Barbie! Get fighting!
The torment escalates with an eye exam enhanced with mace and topped off with a little signature waterboarding for flavor. But John still refuses to reveal the mapmaker's name. Stone, unimpressed, sends them both down the dreaded red line, not without mocking Quiet over her brother Loud's noble fatal sacrifice. As they await the ominous scream treatment, John and Quiet finally share a raw conversation. John admits that his parents' faces have faded from memory, lost to time and trauma. This mission, this journey, is his shot at reclaiming something real, belonging, purpose. Their moment is cut short as they're escorted down a dim hallway, only to find themselves at the edge of a cliff. Stu, gun in hand, orders them to jump, but John and Quiet, reading Stu's wavering conscience, expertly manipulate him into joining them. Stu quickly frees them and agrees to run away with the duo. As John scrambles to gather supplies, Quiet, burning with vengeance, slips away to avenge Loud. Another flashback shows Stone fully cementing his brutal philosophy. A desperate restaurant owner begs for help as starving locals take over his place. Stone, armed with his late father's gun and festering self-righteousness, confronts them. Their mocking words strike a nerve, and Stone snaps, gunning them all down in cold blood, birthing the ruthless enforcer we know today. Meanwhile, Quiet tracks down Shepard and with cold fury bashes his skull in with a stolen gun, avenging her brother. The victory is short-lived. Mike discovers the scene and immediately triggers an alert. John, realizing Evelyn's headlights were left on and her batteries dead, rushes to revive her. With the alarm blaring, Stu pushes the car while John fights with the ignition. Quiet returns just in time, slipping inside as the engine roars to life. They burst through the gates, making their daring escape almost. In a comedic twist of fate, Evelyn's faulty trunk swings open mid-escape, smacking Stu squarely in the head and knocking him out cold. With no time to lose, John and Quiet abandon their unlikely ally, speeding into the night. As they drive, Quiet reveals what she discovered while sneaking through Stone's office. A map marking a rumored sanctuary city deep in the Midwest untouched by the apocalypse. Its name is HQ Topeka, and if the legends are true, it's Stone's hometown, which may be their last shot at safety or salvation. Quiet and John cruise down the endless battered roads of the divided states. As the sun dips lower, fatigue wraps around John like a weighted blanket. His head bobs at the wheel, teetering on sleep, while Quiet, ever true to her name, offers only silence. His attempt at breaking the ice with a simple knock-knock joke falls flat. Quiet looks at him like he's malfunctioning. Honestly, explaining knock-knock jokes to a woman named Quiet feels like trying to sell sand in the desert. Before John can butcher comedy any further, massive rigs loom into view, boxing them in from all sides like mechanical vultures. Outgunned and outmuscled, they're forced off the road into one of the towering trucks. Inside, they meet Watts, the formidable leader of this highway empire known as the Convoy. Watts doesn't waste time. She explains their roadside abduction isn't personal. Someone important wants a word with John. That someone turns out to be Watts' granny, a sharp-tongued matriarch whose frail frame hides a mind still sharp enough to run circles around most survivors. Granny gets to the point. Her insides are failing, and she needs medicine to ease her final days. To make it worth John's while, she promises to upgrade Evelyn with weapons and armor, restoring his beloved car after the lawman stripped her bare. John, never one to pass up free firepower, agrees. Along the way, he learns Watts once dealt with the pharmacist by introducing him to gravity off a moving truck. During their trek for Granny's meds, ominous signs appear, battered billboards and burnt symbols warning of the Holy Men, a radical cult-like gang Granny had cryptically mentioned. Unease coils in John's gut as they push forward. Their destination: a remote shack where they meet Amber, a striking woman with unnerving politeness and steaming cups of tea. The hospitality turns sinister as the tea paralyzes them, their bodies betraying them as Amber eyes them with suspicion, assuming they're holy men. Suddenly, Granny's warning feels very real, but when Amber spots Granny's handwritten list of medicines, her demeanor softens. She revives them with antidotes, explaining Watts didn't betray her out of malice but a broken friendship. Turns out Amber and Watts were good friends, but Watts couldn't make room for her, their story ending with poison instead of closure. With the medicine secured, John and Quiet barely make it down the road before crossing paths with the holy men. Less divine messengers, more apocalyptic biker gang from hell. Dodging confrontation, they slip into an abandoned cinema hall, waiting for the cult to pass. Inside, John throws on a copy of Blank Man, the film frozen in silence thanks to the apocalypse-frying electronics. Instead of dwelling on their constant near-death experiences, they pass popcorn and improvise dialogue for the silent film, their laughter filling the empty theater. Quiet shares a rare, tender memory of her brother Loud sneaking her into a movie once, watching him double over in laughter. Their walls drop just a little. But by morning, the fragile piece cracks. John, thinking he's doing Quiet a favor, washes Loud's jacket, unintentionally erasing the last remnants of her brother, which she really isn't happy with. They return to the convoy with the medicine. Watts explains Granny isn't fighting to survive, she's preparing to enter the next world. As a final gesture, Granny hands Quiet her sutra, a keepsake symbolizing the peace she hopes Quiet can find. Before her goodbye, Granny gives Watts a peculiar flower, the same one Amber mentioned earlier, puzzled by Granny's request despite its lack of medicinal value. In truth, it's Granny's subtle plea for Watts to mend the shattered relationship with Amber. Watts rallies the riggers for one final tribute to Kathy Strempton, their beloved Granny and former top-selling real estate agent from Boca Raton, proof that even the apocalypse couldn't kill Florida hustle. They push Granny's car onto the open road and send it skyward in a fiery explosion. As the rigs erupt in an after-party of roaring engines and loud music, John and Quiet attend. Heeding Granny's advice, Watts radios Amber, opening the door to reconciliation. Later that night, John finally apologizes to Quiet for the jacket. Their eyes meet, both knowing no matter how warm the welcome here feels, they can't stay. They have unfinished business elsewhere. As they drive off into the unknown, neither mentions the stash of Granny's medicine Quiet secretly tucked away. John and Quiet bicker over John's latest stunt, running a vulture off the road just to reclaim his precious CDs. Quiet, unimpressed by his priorities and still laser-focused on her revenge, reminds him exactly why they're headed to Topeka. Not for mixtapes and nostalgia, but for Stone, the man whose death she's been chasing like a phantom since the day Loud was gunned down. Before the duo part ways, Quiet proposes they share a drink. John doesn't notice as she slips some of Granny's medicine into his drink. Within moments, his eyes glaze over and he falls unconscious, leaving Quiet to climb out and go on her mission of revenge. She sets off toward Topeka on foot, determined to face Stone by herself. Because when it comes to bad decisions, Quiet's got a PhD in doing them solo. Meanwhile, in the pristine, untouched sanctuary of Topeka, Stone sits comfortably at his headquarters practicing his word of the day like a power-drunk kindergarten teacher. Today's choice, loquacious. His officers, Jamie and Carl, a bickering brother-sister cop duo, interrupt his linguistic exercise to deliver their latest disappointing update. The fugitives are still at large. Stone reprimands them for their lazy attitude and reminds them that their deadline is Friday night. Out at the dam, Sweet Tooth, having taken his violent brand of entertainment on the road, pulls up with his usual flair for drama. When a clueless guard demands his ORL, Sweet responds the only way a psychotic clown knows how. He shoves a grenade in the poor guy's mouth and watches as his head becomes abstract art. Because Sweet doesn't do paperwork, he does fireworks. Back on the roadside, John's limp body is dragged off the road by a sleazy, opportunistic pervert who, mistaking him for dead, likely had plans that didn't involve hospitality. But before the guy can act, John jolts awake, his instincts kicking in as he fumbles for his knife. His aim is embarrassingly wide, but the element of surprise works in his favor as he charges the man, overpowering and killing him in a brutal scuffle that leaves John bloodied but breathing. Nearby, Quiet has smuggled herself into a control vehicle bound for Topeka, blending into the convoy like a ghost. The officers inside, unaware of the passenger hiding among them, drive straight into the fortified city where Quiet ambushes them, taking control of the vehicle. Yet even as she speeds deeper into the city, the familiar voice of her brother Loud haunts her, whispering the same fear that she's destined to die just like him, consumed by this endless futile thirst for revenge. John finds a letter Quiet left for him. She confesses that her story about Topeka being a sanctuary city was a lie. Her real reason for drugging him and leaving him behind laid bare. In her words, she urges him to be the first milkman without an expiration date. But John, stubborn as ever, sets off toward Topeka anyway, unwilling to abandon her or her mission. Inside the city, Quiet's grip on reality continues to fracture as she imagines Loud sitting beside her in the vehicle, his ghostly presence taunting her mistakes. But her spiraling thoughts are interrupted by Stone and his officers Jamie and Carl, who finally catch up to her. Quiet floors the accelerator and narrowly evades capture. Back at the dam, Sweet Tooth has transformed the place into his own twisted version of liberation. Slaughtering the lawmen and freeing the prisoners they held captive, turning the place into a blood-soaked circus. Among the freed is Stu, still wrapped in equal parts fear and confusion, who spots Mike cowering behind a stack of cartons. Stu keeps Mike's presence to himself, saying nothing as the chaos unfolds. Because Stu may be spineless, but at least he's not heartless. Back in the city, Loud's voice gets to Quiet again, chastising her for squandering the second chance his sacrifice gave her by chasing death head-on. In a rare moment of clarity, Quiet decides to leave, abandoning her deadly crusade for good. But before she can disappear, Stone's voice crackles through the radio offering her a choice: face him head-on in confrontation or come to his office for a civilized chat. Against every survival instinct screaming in her head, Quiet chooses the latter. As Sweet and Stu make their way down the road, Sweet invites Stu to tag along, promising an adventure Stu never asked for, nor feels remotely ready for. Stu, resigned to the madness, agrees, mentioning countless outposts like the dam scattered across the Midwest, ripe with prisoners waiting to be freed and audiences ready to worship Sweet as their twisted savior. The promise of fans for life lights a fire under Sweet, who immediately steers their convoy toward his next stage, with many of the grateful prisoners trailing behind. The final showdown comes crashing together at a dilapidated theme park on Topeka's outskirts, where Stone and Quiet engage in a brutal high-speed car battle. Stone unleashes a missile that slams into Quiet's vehicle, crippling it and sending her off course. As Stone moves in for the final blow, John bursts onto the scene and he fires the red missile Watts gifted him straight into Stone's car, obliterating the vehicle and shattering Stone's moment of victory. As the smoke clears and the wreckage settles, John rushes to Quiet's side, her motionless body limp in his arms. We go back to a flashback when Quiet and Loud were stuck working at the OC farmlands, their lives practically leased out like bad rental cars. Quiet tells Loud that she's managed to secure a bondage contract that promises them their freedom in 4 years as long as they work for some beach house owner. After some convincing, Loud reluctantly agrees to follow her lead, and with that, the scene jumps back to the present. John has brought Quiet to an astral diner in Omaha trying to find some calm, but instead they're locked in a heated argument about whether Stone is really dead, with John's uncertainty lighting the fuse. Their fight escalates and somehow, in true dysfunctional fashion, they end up making out and getting tangled in the ball pit. Another flashback shows that 3 years into the OC contract, things had gone downhill fast. Quiet had been abused by her keeper, reduced to living like a slave to the point where she developed the habit of staying silent, eventually going almost completely mute. Meanwhile, Loud was stuck working the counter in a dingy diner, barely doing better than her. As if things couldn't get worse, there's news of a crazy shooter on the loose, prompting the diner to go into lockdown. In the back room, Loud tries to cheer Quiet up with a hug. He also gets into it with the diner manager, who in typical scumbag fashion threatens him with a knife. The shooter turns out to be another keeper like Quiet, who storms into the diner and declares that OC has no intention of honoring their contracts. Even after her 4 years, she's still trapped in servitude. Her rebellious moment is cut short when the Reaper squad shows up and guns her down without hesitation. Back in the present, Quiet tries to slip away without waking John, but her attempt fails. John still insists that going after Stone is a bad idea. Before they can argue further, thunder rumbles overhead, and John recognizes it immediately, a Watkins storm rolling in. They hurry inside as bolts of lightning start slamming into the ground. Quiet points out that Evelyn, their car, is still out there and will probably get fried. Without hesitation, John runs outside and hauls the car into a shed, getting zapped in the process. With the storm expected to rage for a while, they kill time playing a harmless game and trading stories from their past. John reveals his belief in ocean ghosts and UFOs, while Quiet talks about her fondest memory: a visit to Disneyland before the world fell apart.
What? Why?
Ghosts. The ghosts in the ocean?
There aren't any ghosts in the ocean!
Have you ever been to the ocean? You don't have to laugh, man.
Yes, I do!
Their banter builds into another physical encounter in the ball pit, the tension between them boiling over once again. Afterward, John casually suggests they ditch all this and head to San Francisco to build a life together, but the proposal cuts deeper than he expects. Quiet snaps, telling him that it wouldn't be any different than OC, her voice heavy with the guilt of getting Loud killed by chasing that so-called better life. John tries to convince her to let the past go, but she hits him with a low blow about him never having a real family to lose. Another flashback reveals that the diner manager had planned to hand Loud over to the Reapers, but Quiet had intervened, killing the Reapers and saving him from a fate worse than the contract they were stuck in. Back in the present, both Quiet and John struggle to fall asleep. Quiet, frustrated and hungry, can't get the gas in the kitchen to work. John gets up and helps her replace it, only for Quiet to finally break down, admitting she can't let go of the pain of watching her brother die. John holds her as she falls apart and they sit down to share dinner together before eventually curling up to sleep in the ball pit. When morning comes, John wakes to find Quiet gone. His panic fades when he spots her outside by Evelyn. In a quiet moment of resolution, she agrees to let go of her obsession with Stone and to go with John to New Chicago. Having another flashback to the year 1989, we go back on the set of a sitcom that was once called Two Scoops but has now been awkwardly renamed Billy and Two Scoops, much to the displeasure of Marcus Kane, the show's former lead. Marcus, furious over his demotion in the title and the arrival of Billy, a golden retriever who's clearly the real star now, completely loses it. When the taping begins and Billy steals the spotlight, Marcus, in a fit of unhinged rage, grabs a pair of sewing needles and kills the dog in front of the entire crew.
Who's a good boy now, Billy?
Guess that's one way to cancel a co-star. We jump back to the present where John and Quiet have reached the gates to pick up the package. However, a moat blocks their path, forcing them to look for another way in. John accidentally triggers the entrance by stepping on a stone, and a voice begins guiding them through a creepy hallway. John quickly guesses that the voice belongs to Calypso, a well-known and mysterious figure in these parts. After grabbing the package, they waste no time getting back on the road. To avoid Topeka, they'll need to take the longer route, heading back through the north. Meanwhile, Agent Stone is on the radio with Carl, who informs him that Sweet Tooth has hit 3 more outposts. Sweet has been freeing prisoners and, according to Carl, is heading somewhere important, which turns out to be Blackfield Asylum. Sweet clearly has unfinished business there. Quiet and John make a pit stop at Nut House, a common spot where milkmen go to rest and refuel. It's there they run into Mary, John's old flame whom he left behind.
I guess you two know each other? Wait. You're with this son of a...
Mr. Slam, the bartender, informs Quiet that Mary isn't just some ex, she's one of the greatest milkmen in history. Talk about running into your overachieving ex at the worst possible time. It's then revealed that Marcus Kane is actually Sweet Tooth. After the incident with the dog, Marcus was sent to Blackfield Asylum where he spent 10 years and made plenty of unsettling friends. Stu, who's now riding with Sweet, finds out the full story. That Marcus's co-star was a dog and that he locked his parents inside one of the asylum's cells where they eventually rotted and died after the bug. Stu is clearly horrified but doesn't dare challenge Marcus, knowing how that could end. Marcus confesses to the skeletal remains of his parents that he never wanted to be on the show in the first place, but they forced him because it made them rich. Marcus and Stu head back to the asylum's courtyard where they discover that Stone and his officers have already killed all the prisoners. Stone's team opens fire on the duo and, believing they've killed them, leave. Among the shooters is Mike, and it's clear he intentionally missed his shot. Back at Nut House, John tells Mary this will be his final run and mentions New San Francisco. Mary wastes no time spreading the news to the other milkmen, but John uses this to his advantage. Standing before the eager crowd, he holds up the package and asks, "Who do I give this to?" Chaos erupts as the milkmen turn on each other, each one desperate to claim the package. Even members of Mary's gang go after John and Quiet. Eventually, the fight narrows down to just Quiet and Mary. Quiet holds a blade to Mary's throat, and it's then that Mary admits her jealousy. She's bitter that John never asked her to come along. Quiet chooses to spare her at first, telling her, "Don't let revenge ruin a second chance in life." But Mary refuses to back down, leaving Quiet no choice but to stab her in the chest. Back at the asylum, Stu once again saves Mike's life by convincing Marcus that Mike could help them track down Stone. John hands Quiet the car keys, finally showing his trust. As they drive away, Pit Viper, one of the milkmen from the bar, sends a text to Stone revealing the duo's location. Going into another flashback, we see how John first met Evelyn, his beloved car, under the worst possible circumstances, and somehow that only made him love her more. In the present day, John is stuck with a choice that feels almost impossible. Thanks to his amnesia, he has no memory of his parents or where he came from. His life, as far as he knows, began the day he woke up alone inside his parents' car during a brutal Watkins storm. Before he could make sense of anything, a woman stole the car and vanished, leaving him to fend for himself. While foraging for fruit one day, John fell straight down through the trees and landed on Evelyn. Though back then she didn't have a name. The car was buried under a thick canopy covered in dirt and leaves, with a rotten corpse decomposing inside it. John cleared it out and took shelter in the car, which turned out to be his lifeline. Inside, he found some money that he used to start a fire, some food, and even a stack of adult magazines. Because nothing says survival kit like snacks and smut. The only problem was the car wouldn't start. The battery had been dead for years. Everything changed the day 2 cannibals cornered him in the jungle. Desperate, John jumped into the car and tried to start it.
Please, please, please.
We're gonna get ya!
And somehow, by sheer luck or fate, the engine roared to life. Evelyn saved him, and from that moment on, the car became his most prized possession. He later found the nameplate in a junkyard and scavenged other parts to get her fully operational. In the present, John and Quiet are hit with a new setback. While driving, Quiet discovers a photo of John tucked in the car's visor. It slips from her hand and flies into a field. They manage to find the photo, but during the distraction, a group of holy men steal Evelyn. John is devastated and so furious he refuses to speak to Quiet for an entire hour. She begs him to let her help get the car back, and eventually John agrees. They steal masks from nearby dead bodies and infiltrate the holy men's congregation, which feels less like a religious group and more like a hedonistic carnival. The place is dripping with drugs, booze, and loud preaching, all led by the preacher, a deranged, wild-eyed man. The preacher confesses that when the apocalypse hit, he lost faith and starts blabbering about absolute nonsense. The preacher demands gifts from his followers, and most of them bring him junk, none of which impresses him. That is, until one of the thugs rolls in Evelyn, pristine and perfect. John's jealousy and rage boil over, and he challenges the preacher to a duel, even though it's clear to everyone that the odds are stacked against him. The other man is a beast. While the fight unfolds, Quiet sneaks out the back and steals a car, determined to help him escape. John, unsurprisingly, loses the duel and ends up locked in a cage while the night's twisted celebrations hit their peak. Quiet breaks him out and begs him to come with her in the car she jacked. But Mary's old statement lingers in the air because when faced with the choice, John chooses Evelyn. Quiet watches from a distance, heartbroken as John runs back to rescue his car. A massive explosion follows, and Quiet assumes John is dead. She feels betrayed, abandoned, and crushed by the loss of yet another partner. She drives off alone while John, very much alive, stands amid the scattered pieces of Evelyn, staring at the broken remains of the only thing that ever saved him when he had no one else. His bond with the car isn't just attachment, it's a puzzle, a paradox, and maybe the only beautiful thing left in his life. Marcus, better known as Sweet Tooth, has found a new target for his twisted games, and this time it's Mike. With an electric shock collar fastened around Mike's neck, Marcus parades him around like a dog while Stu watches in silence. When Marcus steps away, Mike seizes the chance to talk sense into Stu, reminding him that they've known each other since kindergarten, and in all those years he's never seen Stu lose himself like this. Mike warns him that when things go south, Marcus isn't going to be anyone's friend, not even his. Stu, still trying to hold on to some hope, suggests to Marcus that they could start over since Stone and the others believe they're dead. But Marcus doesn't even flinch at the idea. Instead, they head straight for the dam, where Marcus casually pours gasoline over his head and tells Stu to light it up when the time is right. He smears faint clown paint across both their faces like it's just another day at the circus. Meanwhile, there are only 48 hours left on the deadline. Quiet still has the package with her, but nearly crashes when she swerves off the road to avoid a dead deer lying in her path. Before she can recover, Vulture shows up and blocks her. They exchange words about his ex Tasha and a few other things, but the conversation quickly sours when he pulls a gun on her. Quiet is seconds away from being killed when Watts and Amber show up, saving her life. Quiet is caught off guard when she sees the rig, and Watts explains that John was the one who tracked them down. He knew Quiet would be following the map. Though relieved, Quiet is too furious to speak to him. Watts fills them in, revealing that Stone and his forces have retreated to the dam after Marcus started tearing through their outposts. The only route to New San Francisco now runs through the dam. Luckily, Watts knows of a gap in the blockade that will get them through safely. She offers to drive them to the opening and leave them with a functioning car for the final stretch. Elsewhere, Stone rallies his men and promises to catch the mute and the milkman by springing a trap. Back in the rig, John and Quiet start fixing up an old car for their escape. The tension between them finally boils over when Quiet confronts him for leaving her behind just to save his car. To her, that proved they aren't partners. John only cares about completing his delivery. John struggles to defend himself but hands Quiet her signature throw blade as a peace offering. He admits that they make each other better and that beyond day 10 he can't picture his life without her. Quiet seems affected by his words, but before they can process it, Stone's men attack the convoy. John and Quiet quickly armor the car, load it with weapons, and prepare for battle. As they hit the road, they name their new ride Roadkill, which also happens to be the episode title. With Watts and Amber leading the way in the rig and John and Quiet following in Roadkill, they make it to the blockade, which feels suspiciously quiet. Around the large compound, they spot a fleet of cars parked in eerie silence. It's Stone's trap, and all his men are hiding in those vehicles waiting for their moment. The episode ends with the promise of an all-out showdown as Sweet Tooth joins the chaos, bringing along Twister, Watts' beloved F1 car. The showdown begins as Stone's men clash with the milkman and his allies, turning the compound into absolute chaos, with explosions shaking the ground and bullets zipping through the air like angry bees on caffeine. Amidst the crossfire, Quiet finally clears up John's long-standing confusion about Jell-O. For the longest time, John believed it meant goodbye because Raven's fake husband had said it at dinner when things were wrapping up. Turns out the guy was just bringing out dessert and John had completely missed the point. Guess nobody explained to him that gelatin isn't a farewell ritual. In the thick of battle, Sweet Tooth temporarily fights on John and Watts' side by taking out Stone's men. But considering he's an unhinged lunatic, his loyalty lasts about as long as a popsicle in the desert. His new plan is simple: kill everyone, which makes Stu and Mike extremely nervous. Watts proves her worth by skillfully maneuvering Twister around the battlefield, dodging enemy fire, and even saving Roadkill from a missile Stone launched straight at them. Realizing Sweet Tooth has completely lost it, Mike finally acts on instinct and pulls a gun on him. But Sweet is faster and gets Mike in a headlock, handing Stu the gun and telling him to kill his friend. Stu, after a moment of hesitation, flips the script by turning the gun on Sweet Tooth and pushing Mike off the truck with him. Sweet Tooth isn't done yet though. He jumps onto Stone's car from the back of the truck, but his luck runs out when Mike and Stu, now in a car of their own, run him over. All that's left on the road is Sweet's iconic clown mask and Harold, his trusty brown paper bag sidekick. It's a tough day when even your paper bag looks disappointed in you. Meanwhile, Roadkill is charging toward the final stretch, but Stone is hot on their heels. With Quiet at the wheel, she makes a bold decision and whips the car around to confront him head-on. As they close the distance, she releases a hidden ramp from Roadkill's bumper, sending Stone's car flying through the air and crashing down hard. Stone survives the crash and, crawling out, holds a gun to Quiet's head. He gives his final speech, explaining how, after the world ended, the same people who laughed at him for being a mall cop came begging for order and security. He claims he only ever tried to give them exactly that. But Quiet isn't buying any of it and coolly calls him out as a sad lonely man looking for control. While Stone is distracted by her words, John wakes up and nails his follow-through at last by throwing Quiet's signature blade straight into Stone's face. Quiet doesn't finish him off. Instead, she places a gun in front of him, knowing he'll bleed out and die one way or another. As Roadkill drives off, a gunshot is heard and Stone is finally dead. John and Quiet finally make it to the gates of New San Francisco, where Raven steps out to meet them. John hands over the package and, true to her word, Raven welcomes him as a citizen. But she refuses to let Quiet in with him, leaving John heartbroken and ready to reject the offer altogether. Quiet, holding back her emotions, convinces him to accept his new life by shooting him.
Quiet.
Not fatally, but enough to get him carried inside for medical care. In a flashback from before the fall, Raven and her friend Kelly attempt to prank their classmate. But the prank goes wrong and Kelly gets in an accident, putting her in a coma. The story continues as John is forced to train on a video game for the upcoming race, while also doing his job as a pizza delivery boy. He tries to escape but fails, so the new Raven assigns 2 officers to accompany him at all times. John attempts to flee again, but this time Raven puts an entire squad to watch him. John tells her that he preferred the old Raven, but she thinks her predecessor mishandled him, so to assert her dominance, she orders the guards to torture him. She explains that the only way he can leave town is by driving her car, because she needs him to bring Kelly back. Meanwhile, in Molesto City, Quiet accompanies the girls as they attack a factory supplying medicines to the insiders. The doll's leader, named Krista, kills everyone there before they steal the supplies. On the other side, Stu finds 2 men stealing from an abandoned car, so he rushes toward them asking for help. When one of the men asks about his pursuer, Stu says it's his best friend and stabs him multiple times, while Sweet Tooth finishes the other one. Stu asks for his approval, but Sweet Tooth notes that he missed all the vital organs. In New San Francisco City, as punishment for trying to run away, Raven takes the DVDs from John's house, so he spends his time reading children's books instead. He reads through them quickly, but gets irritated when he can't find the 89th book, which introduces a new character. Meanwhile, the dolls celebrate their recent raid, and Krista appreciates Quiet because it was her idea. However, she thinks it isn't enough, saying they need to take down the walls of a major city since they have the best resources. At home, John goes to his childhood room and finds the remaining books. But unfortunately, book 89 has its pages carved out because his sister hid drugs there. He notices her diary, which says he once went down sewers and got a pink eye. John calls the security guard named Chester into the shower and recruits him into his plan of escaping through the sewers. Quiet thinks Krista isn't thinking rationally because taking on a mega city is too dangerous, and she doesn't wish to lose any of her new friends. Krista ignores her plea and instead starts doing her makeup, so Quiet tells her that it doesn't matter, since she has a mask on most of the time. Krista reminds her that the mask doesn't hide their beauty, but it unites them, because when one of them dies, another takes her place. Quiet believes in the mission, but she still thinks Krista's plan is too dangerous, so Krista reminds her that the walls are the reason she can't even reunite with her brother. She mentions that when she heard about a milkman who drove across the country, she thought it must be her brother, but instead she found Quiet, who has made her place in the group, so Quiet has to decide whether she wants to carry on with them or not. Elsewhere, Sweet Tooth and Stu take out a dangerous man, but they realize there's an even stronger man out there, which enrages Sweet Tooth. Stu suggests they hold a competition to decide who is the best killer, and Sweet Tooth likes the idea. In the meantime, Chester tells the other guards about John's plan to escape through the sewers, and he goes to the place where John said he would come out from. However, they notice he isn't wearing his uniform, so he tells them it got wet, and so he exchanged them with John. After a bit, John manages to escape and enters the garage, but he decides not to take a fancy car and instead chooses the ambulance. However, he finds Kelly inside. A man named Calypso suddenly comes on screens all over the country, and he invites everyone to his competition taking place in 1 week. The rules are simple. Defeat everyone and the winner will get 1 wish fulfilled, no matter what it is. The guards inform Raven that they have eyes on John, so she orders them to shoot him. But when they mention the ambulance, she orders them to stop and rushes to check on Kelly. She's relieved to see Kelly safe, but John has already left with the ambulance, so she sends her men to stop him. Meanwhile, Quiet tells Krista that she has met Calypso in Chicago, and he's the real deal. Besides, he turned on all the technology at once, so she thinks they should compete and win the competition so they can wish to bring down all walls. They suddenly hear an alert of incoming traffic, so they quickly get ready. The dolls soon find the ambulance, and they take out the pursuing police cars with their rocket launchers before they focus on the ambulance. John recognizes Roadkill, but before he can do anything, Quiet blows up his ambulance with a rocket. He barely comes out of the vehicle when Quiet shoots him again. Krista recognizes him as her brother Lionel, but he has no clue what she's saying. A flashback shows that 10 years ago, when Krista joined a new gang, she soon realized that the ladies were actually running the operation. She led a revolt and took full control from the men, starting the Dolls gang. In the present, John wakes up and one of the dolls named Ashley starts teasing him that he's a spy, but Quiet intervenes and saves him. He tells her how New Francisco was a trap, as Raven only wanted him to compete in the race. Quiet introduces him to Krista, who calls him Lionel, and says she's his sister, but he's unable to remember her. He wonders why they all wear masks, so she tells him about their mission to remove the divide between insiders and outsiders, explaining that their numbers grow with each community they free. John feels bad that he can't remember anything about her, but Quiet tries to cheer him up by showing him roadkill. He tells her about his grandfather's remote cabin where he wants to go with her, but she refuses to leave this place. She tells him about her plan to compete in the race, but he thinks it's too dangerous. However, she doesn't think he has the right to make decisions for her, so he reminds her of how she shot and left him. She says he always wished to live inside the wall, so he should be thanking her for fulfilling his wish, and if he thinks she will change her decision, then he doesn't know her. A girl named Mayhem suddenly comes and takes some things from there, so Quiet goes to confront her. Mayhem lies that Ashley forgot her keys and asked her to unlock the car, but Quiet tells her that it isn't Ashley's car and the girl accidentally drops the things she had stolen. She accepts she isn't a doll and creates a fake story that these supplies are for her sick brother, but when the gun drops, Quiet picks it up and knocks her out with a solid punch. John goes to talk to Krista, but she tells him that Quiet isn't the kind of girl who will change her decision for anyone. And besides, competing in the tournament was her idea. She feels upset that John didn't even ask about their parents, but John refuses to hear it since he realizes it's a sad story. On the other side, Quiet chains Mayhem to a tree and leaves a hatchet, so if she has the guts she can free herself. Krista holds a meeting where she says they will only send one doll into the tournament, so if anyone wishes to participate they should stand up. Quiet, Ashley and John show interest, but Ashley reminds John that he isn't a doll. Mayhem hears their discussion and laughs, so Krista asks if she has something to say. Mayhem thinks that if they can't defeat one man, how will they defeat the other competitors, so they allow John to participate. Quiet drives roadkill while Krista gives her car to John, but she's surprised that he's already fighting for their cause, so he confesses that he just wants to protect Quiet. The race starts and Quiet shows him her new moves while the dolls use different obstacles to prepare them for the real race. John manages to overtake Quiet, but just before the finish line she uses her booster and wins the race. However, she's unable to stop the car and crashes into a tree. They all congratulate her, but Quiet notices Mayhem is missing, so she goes to retrieve her favorite hatchet. John accompanies her in the search, and they soon see Mayhem chained to a tree. As they come near her, the cave people come out of their hidden spots and they say they wish to punish Mayhem for stealing from them. John and Quiet fight them, and they save Mayhem, with Quiet delivering the lethal last blow. They are glad they could team up one last time, and John thinks it doesn't have to be the last time, which makes Mayhem cringe. Krista meets John and asks about his recent fight, so he mentions it was just like old times. She reminds him that although he doesn't believe in their cause, the walls are the reason their parents and Quiet's brother are dead. She says he can't save Quiet, and all he can do is have her back, but only if she wants it. Meanwhile, Quiet once again chains Mayhem to a tree as she believes Mayhem needs the dolls, and she can't allow her to live on her own. Mayhem thinks it's the same for Quiet, as she also needs John, but Quiet disagrees. Mayhem claims it was the same with her ex-husband, which shocks Quiet that she was married. John meets Quiet as she prepares roadkill for the tournament, and he believes she no longer needs him, so he will be rooting for her. It softens her heart and she offers to take him with her. As they both decide to team up again, Krista tells them that they will need more weapons and the best ones can only be found in Diesel City. On the other side, at the Blackfield Asylum, a man named Grimm receives an invitation to drive in the tournament, so he accepts it. Grimm goes to a cemetery where he kills some men and digs out his motorbike from one of the graves before he takes off on it. With only 2 days left for the race, John and Quiet continue traveling towards Diesel City. On their way, Quiet tells him about the time she spent with the dolls. She thinks he shouldn't avoid Krista, but he believes just because they are family doesn't mean they have to vibe. She pretends there is a problem with the car, so when he gets out to check, she speeds away, forcing him to share a ride with Krista. She asks him about their old house in San Francisco and if he liked anything. He mentions the Babysitters Club, which makes her happy. He asks how Abby joined the club, but unfortunately she doesn't remember, which upsets him, so she taunts him because he can't remember his entire childhood. Krista decides to take a detour, telling the rest of the party to continue. As Quiet starts singing in her car, she suddenly hears a voice telling her to shut up, so she stops the car and finds Mayhem in the trunk. Mayhem says she wishes to participate as well, claiming to be the best driver, so Quiet decides to test her, but she doesn't even know how to drive. Krista takes John to the drive-in cinema, and although he's reluctant at first, she manages to convince him to go with her. She says it used to be his favorite place during their childhood, and she takes him to the spot where they would always watch movies with their father. She gives him Bud and tries to remind him of his past memories, telling him about the family whistle their dad used when they were too noisy. It reminds John of Abby's character from the books, but it enrages Krista as she questions if he's even trying to remember his past. He accepts that he isn't, because if he got his memories back he would be weighed down by everything he has lost. Their conversation gets disturbed as someone starts shooting at them, so they try to escape, but a sudden invisible force field blocks their exit. They notice a man with giant wheels attached to his arms, but he starts shooting at them, so they quickly take cover. John tries to show off his shooting skills, but the bullet bounces back from the tire and nicks Krista's face. He apologizes to her and creates an opening with cover fire so they can move forward. After that, she asks him to stitch her wound, but he has no idea how to do that, so she's forced to do it herself. Quiet teaches Mayhem how to drive, and she even shows her how dangerous it will be under pressure, but her strict teaching methods are too much for Mayhem. Meanwhile, John and Krista discuss how they will get out of there. John suggests that he will try to climb to the highest point to get a better view of their surroundings, but Krista thinks they should turn off the barrier instead. As they try to get into the cabin, they see the wheelman resting on a chair. On the other side, Ashley and Jeremy are getting intimate in the car. But Grim suddenly arrives there, leaving them terrified. Quiet offers food to Mayhem, and she tells Mayhem how her brother taught her how to survive. She accepts that his teaching methods were brutal, but they helped her survive on her own. In the open cinema, the wheelman passes out after developing his own drink, which we all know of gasoline. The siblings use this to sneak into the cabin where they discover plans for Project Axel. The scientist suddenly arrives, taking Krista hostage, so he forces John to let go of his gun. He tells them how he realized the only way to survive outside was to be in a car, so he decided to join humans in cars. He thinks there is still room for improvement, and he will use them as his test subjects, but John tricks him, and Krista pushes him away, allowing John to throw him out of the window where a steel rod impales him to death. Krista cuts the power, which turns off the barrier, but it wakes up Axel. They tell him they have killed the scientist and turned off the barrier, so he thanks them before leaving the place. Quiet resumes her lessons, but as Mayhem looks in the mirror, she sees Jeremy limping towards them. Grim comes from behind and kills him before sucking his soul. As he notices them, Quiet tells Mayhem to drive quickly, so she uses the skills she had just learned to speed away. However, they see Axel coming towards them, so Mayhem turns at the last moment, which puts Axel in Grim's path. He tries to cut Axel, but it only enrages him, and they both shift their focus to fighting each other, allowing the girls to escape. They start singing to calm themselves, while John and Krista continue their bonding as he shows her the cabin's map he found in her diary. Quiet and Mayhem soon arrive, telling them about their encounter with Axel and how Grim killed Ashley and Jeremy. They bury their stuff, and Krista acknowledges that although they weren't the best soldiers, they followed the mission with all their hearts, which will carry on even after their deaths. The group reaches Diesel City, and Krista tells them that there is a strict no-violence policy, and the gas anyone brings is exchanged for their in-house currency, allowing them to buy weapons. However, the most lethal weapons are found in the Emperor's vault, but the switch that opens it lies in the Emperor's room. She also tells them that only big buyers like representatives of walled cities are allowed in that VIP zone. So she gives John and Quiet new dresses to change their appearance. She accompanies them as their assistant, while Mayhem is tasked to stay with the car. Sweet Tooth and Stu are also there to buy weapons, and Stu tries to purchase deadly weapons for the upcoming competition, but Sweet Tooth makes things difficult for him, as he wishes to buy non-practical weapons and kill people there. Quiet and John realize they will need ID cards to enter the VIP section. So Quiet tries to seduce the men, but she fails. Luckily, Mayhem comes there with 2 cards, and she even gives John glasses to make him match his ID photo. Surprisingly, John starts seeing things more clearly, as he didn't know he had weak eyesight. The guard allows them in, and they enter the exclusive zone where the Emperor is busy talking to the other guests. They notice a more guarded section and realize it must be where the vault is located. So they try to reach there, but the Emperor stops them, since he finds it shocking that representatives of 2 enemy cities are hanging together. They lie that they have struck a deal, and he discusses how much violence their cities have been doing to the outsiders. He finally leaves, saying he has to prepare for the main event, and they should enjoy the auction. Meanwhile, Sweet Tooth buys a fancy cape because the seller told him it belongs to Dracula, and he shows Stu how he can use it to kill others without getting caught by the snipers. Stu finds it irritating that he wasted their money like that, but suddenly the guards come and take Stu, while Sweet Tooth just turns a blind eye. John in the meantime thinks they are running out of time, so they should just grab something they like and leave. But the salesman comes explaining the various weapons at auction. However, as he explains the violent ways these weapons can be used on the outsiders, John gets angry, so Quiet calms him down. The Emperor tells everyone to wrap up their business because it's time to have some fun. Meanwhile, Krista goes and takes out some snipers, but they manage to outnumber her. Luckily, Sweet Tooth comes and assists her. As John and Quiet enter the room, they realize it's a private party where people pretend to be vultures and holy men to live out their fantasies. They notice the vault and start moving towards it while trying to blend in with the crowd. The Emperor brings Stu as he wishes to punish him with pleasure, but Stu starts enjoying the extra attention. John and Quiet notice a guard, so Quiet demonstrates her cutting skills as she slices through him, impressing John. He also wishes to do the same, so he decides to go through the lasers alone, and he successfully passes through, but she uses her hatchet to disable it. However, the passionate atmosphere outside arouses them too, so the couple gets intimate while the place starts burning. They don't notice Stu arriving there, and he steals all the good weapons. Meanwhile, Krista notices an EMP device in the control room, and she thinks it will be very useful for the competition. However, Sweet Tooth also wants it for the same reason, so she attacks him. He has the size advantage, but luckily Mayhem comes from behind and covers his face with his cape, allowing Krista to land her attack. They manage to steal the EMP device, but it all creates chaos in Diesel City as everyone starts stealing. When John and Quiet hear the commotion, they notice their clothes are burnt in the fire and most of the weapons are gone. As they reach outside, covering their bodies with whatever they can find, they see that Mayhem isn't in the car. Krista and Mayhem eventually arrive, but they are shocked to find them naked. Stu finds Sweet Tooth and tells him how he killed everyone and has even brought the weapons they wanted. He congratulates Stu on his first massacre. But when Stu tells him about his other achievements, Sweet Tooth gets disgusted and tells him to shut up. At night, as the group sits together, John wonders how Krista got the EMP, since they could only get the armor-piercing bullets and boomerang missiles. Krista notes that she has realized the tournament is too dangerous, and she will also participate, providing technical support as she can handle the EMP, which will allow them to win easily. John's team reaches the tournament arena, and Quiet realizes Mayhem isn't ready for the competition, but if they stop her, she will definitely participate. John notices the holy men who blame him for the preacher's death, but John denies it. They say they will ask the preacher himself and bring a baby, which they believe is the reincarnated preacher. Krista notices Axel and tries to flirt with him, so he accepts that he owes her one for freeing him, but once he has repaid the favor, he won't show any mercy. Sweet Tooth also arrives, and he tells Stu to take care of the paper bag named Harold, while he meets John and Quiet. He thinks they came to cheer him on, but they tell him they are also participating in the tournament. Meanwhile, Mayhem tries to learn more about the other competitors, and she turns them against each other. Stu intentionally bumps into a man and tries to establish dominance, but he suddenly sees his old friend Mike. They both thought the other was dead, and Stu is still unable to accept that it's really him, and he's not hallucinating. Mike's partner Dave arrives, making Stu jealous, but Dave has already heard a lot about him from Mike. Stu wonders how they met, so Mike tells him that after Sweet Tooth attacked them, he rolled over in the fire to cauterize the gash. But he was soon found by a cannibal group called Butchers. Dave notes that he was part of that group, but Mike made him realize it's wrong to eat humans, so they both escaped from there. Mike wonders how Stu got away from Sweet Tooth, but he suddenly comes from behind, which angers Mike because he thinks Stu has become his minion. Stu tries to assure him that he isn't a minion, and he just killed a room full of people yesterday all on his own, which further disappoints Mike. Dave assures Stu that it will take some time, but they will be alright. Sweet Tooth sees Grim arriving, which shocks him, so Grim notes he got a special invitation. He tries to make Sweet Tooth angry, saying he knows he's in pain but soon he will be free, and his soul will be with them. Mayhem continues to gather intel and spread rumors, but Quiet fears it will make her everyone's target. Raven also arrives, and she's surprised to see John competing after he rejected her offer and fled from her city. She notices Quiet and understands his reasons, but their conversation is interrupted as the host Calypso makes his entrance. Calypso tells them they must pass the qualifying round to officially enter the race. He mentions that they need to grab the parcels and deliver them to the tournament city, and only those who successfully deliver the parcels will enter the tournament. He starts the race and they all start shooting at each other, so John wonders if Mayhem will be alright. Quiet assures him that she will be fine because she cut her car's cable so it won't start. But Mayhem sees a dead driver and steals his car. Sweet Tooth has his target fixed on Grim, and he shoots missiles at him, but he manages to evade most of them and deflect some as well. The holy men shoot at Stu's van and their package gets hit, changing its color, but luckily a grenade falls and blasts the pursuing vehicle. Death Warrant gets in a shootout with another driver, and he manages to successfully destroy the parcel, so a missile comes from above and destroys the car. John realizes they are being tracked through the package, but unfortunately their parcel gets hit, so Quiet tells him to be careful. Sweet Tooth likes the missiles and thinks that if he takes out Grim with him it would be perfect, but Stu doesn't want to die, so he tricks him and takes the wheel. Sweet Tooth sees Grim and starts aiming, but Stu moves the vehicle, making him miss the target, which enrages him. Mayhem encounters a man named Chucky Floop on the track, and she pushes him toward a burning car, but he blasts it and jumps over it. He starts shooting at her, so she shoots the flare at him, which makes Quiet realize she has also joined the race. John notices Quiet is worried for her, so he tells her to turn around and he takes over driving as they go back to save Mayhem. In a flashback, John sees Calypso painting on a signboard, so he recognizes him as the man who has been doing it all over the country. He asks about the word Calypso he has been painting everywhere, which surprises Calypso that John hasn't heard about him. Calypso mentions that he's one of the believers who consider Calypso the great uniter of this broken nation. John doesn't believe him, so Calypso asks about his biggest desire. John wishes he had a home and a family, which Calypso finds funny because he thinks John should enjoy his freedom. Before he leaves, John asks about Calypso's wish, and he desires to be seen. In the present, John and Quiet locate Mayhem's car and try to give her cover. Quiet tells her that the missiles are tracking the package. Billy tries to attack Mayhem's car, so Quiet kills him with her axe. Grim suddenly comes from behind and starts attacking Roadkill, so John asks Krista for help because she has the EMP. Meanwhile, Raven and several others reach the finish line, but Sweet Tooth attacks Stu and threatens to finish him if he ever comes in his way, though he also likes it because it was quite chaotic. Krista finds Roadkill and tells them to continue the race, as she will deal with Grim, but her EMP device malfunctions, so she's forced to use the rear-mounted machine gun. However, as she returns to driving, a hook suddenly impales her, dragging her onto the road. She realizes she can't win, so she shoots her own package, and the airstrike finishes her opponents along with her. As they reach their destination, Quiet scolds Mayhem, and John warns her that it's the last time they're saving her. Calypso notes that the race is finished, but John stops him, saying Krista is still on her way, but they are unable to contact her. Her quad bike reaches there with her mask, so they realize she's dead. On the bus, Calypso tells everyone that they will have multiple rounds, and the last surviving driver will get his wish fulfilled, but he reminds them that they can't kill anyone outside the official rounds. They are all taken to a school where they will stay between rounds. The doctors perform their checkups and they are assigned rooms. Raven doesn't like sharing her room with Chucky, so Calypso tells her that she can kill her roommate in the next round and have the room all to herself. She behaves rudely, so he warns her that it's his tournament and he won't allow her to mess around. Stu sees Mike and Dave vibing, so he gets jealous and tries to remind Mike about their time in school. However, they get interrupted as Sweet Tooth forces Stu to help him build a pillow fort. Quiet tries to comfort John, telling him that it's tragic how Krista died, but she believed in the mission, so they must carry it on because that's what she would have wanted. Calypso calls everyone to the cafeteria where they enjoy the delicious food. Dave warns Stu that he knows what he's trying to do, but surprisingly he's fine with Stu trying to get closer to Mike. Calypso comes and Vermin starts complimenting the sandwiches. He tells them to make one wish per car, which if they win will be fulfilled, but he notes they should be careful to decide what one thing is worth risking everything. As Frostbite enters to share her wish, Sweet Tooth attacks Grim, but Stu stops him from killing Grim because if he kills him now, they will get disqualified and Sweet Tooth won't be able to make a name for himself by winning the tournament. Dave agrees and Sweet Tooth lets go of Grim, who reminds him that although he's bigger, they are larger in number, and they never get tired. One by one, everyone goes to share their wish, and finally it's John and Quiet's turn. They go near the well and she wishes for all the walls to come down everywhere. As they are about to leave, John stops because they forgot the mask, but he suddenly remembers the limited time he spent with Krista, and he makes another wish to bring Krista back to life. All the participants upgrade their vehicles in the shared garage, but John feels guilty and starts behaving weirdly. He asks Quiet if they should mount the boomerang rocket or keep it in the back for an emergency, so she chooses the latter option. They notice Mayhem carrying a heavy weapon, and Quiet thinks it will be hard to kill someone with such a heavy weapon. But Mayhem lies that she has experience. The participants start discussing their wishes, and Chucky wishes for the ability to fly, but Dave notes that he doesn't have a wish as he's happy with his life. And he has asked Mike to wish for whatever he wants. Vermin notes that she wishes to exterminate humanity and let the other creatures take over. They all want to know Quiet's wish, so she says she wants all the walls to go down because they want equality for everyone. But Raven disagrees that it's important to differentiate the insiders from outsiders. Mayhem interrupts, saying she wishes to be invincible, which makes everyone laugh, and they start roasting her. Calypso arrives, telling them about the first round called the Warehouse District Warfare, where the objective is to find the passes, as only 8 cars can move to the next round. He mentions that they can find the passes by following the red smoke, but since John and Quiet came last in the qualifying round, he gives them a 1-minute head start and a tracker to find the passes. Raven protests it's unfair, but Calypso reminds her that it's his tournament, so they all are forced to follow his rules. John starts the race, but he gets distracted as Quiet places Krista's mask on the dashboard. He's unable to drive and makes an excuse, asking her to drive instead. However, he struggles to even guide her properly, and their 1 minute passes quickly, so everyone else also starts their race. Mayhem runs into Axel, who starts shooting at her, and she barely survives the attack. Roadkill finally reaches a warehouse, and John thinks they will easily get it because it took them some time to get there, even with the tracker. Unfortunately, the Holy Men and Sweet Tooth also reach there along with Mayhem, so they all start sliding on the ice floor to get the pass. Stu is about to reach it, but the Holy Men push the Preacher Baby to stop him, and the baby shoots him in the shoulder before getting pushed back because of the recoil. The pass eventually reaches Sweet Tooth, so John and Quiet leave to find another pass. Elsewhere, Mayhem finds another warehouse, but Chucky gets to the pass before her, so she's forced to fight him to get it. Chucky manages to overpower her, but Mayhem hits him with a prosthetic hand before kicking him out of the window, which results in his death. John and Quiet fail again, as Vermin gets the pass, so they are only left with 2 more chances to get the passes. As Mayhem goes outside, she notices her car is destroyed, so she takes Chucky's car, which has an AI system built in. The system takes control and takes her to the destination. As Sweet Tooth and Stu are about to cross the exit, Grim jumps with his bike into the back of their van and crosses the barrier using their pass. Sweet Tooth thinks that if it weren't for Grim, they would have come first, but Stu reminds him how almost everyone came before them. Meanwhile, Roadkill reaches the last pass, but the Holy Men are already there. So Quiet tells John to cover her as she tries to retrieve the pass. Quiet faces them in a hand-to-hand fight, but John runs out of bullets, so he grabs the boomerang rocket. However, before he can shoot it, one of the Holy Men grabs it and they take off in their car. John tries to chase their car, so the Holy Men ask the Preacher for guidance and he tells them to finish them. They decide to shoot Roadkill with their own rocket. However, the rocket changes direction before hitting them and instead hits the Holy Men, so John goes to retrieve the pass. Shockingly, the baby is too strong, so they decide to carry him with them. As they reach their destination, Quiet wonders where they should leave the baby, so Calypso offers to take him. Mayhem finds them, and she's glad they're still alive, but John notices she wants to talk to Quiet, so he gives them space. Mayhem tells her that she has killed someone for the first time, so Quiet congratulates her and asks about the details. Mayhem notes that she always thought her first kill would be special, but Quiet tells her it's better this way. Afterwards, as Quiet meets John, she worries something is wrong with him, as he was very weird the whole day. So he confesses to making his wish earlier. Axel sees a dream of how he used to work as a hitman to pay off his loan one day. After he killed some drug dealers and was about to leave, he found a baby there. He eventually got caught by a crazy scientist who turned him into the human car Axel. He wakes up with horror, so Vermin teases him for having a bad dream. Quiet fights with John as she thinks he was selfish in making his own wish, and he didn't even tell her, which put their lives and the mission in danger. But since they are all stuck in the same building, others also hear their argument. Meanwhile, Sweet Tooth goes to the doctor, who tells him that the test results just came back, and unfortunately he's sterile. Quiet tries to take out her anger by working out, but Frostbite asks her if she's no longer with John, can she have him? Quiet gives her the green signal, and besides, she believes John does whatever he wants. However, Frostbite suddenly gets hit by a man, and Calypso announces that he has prepared a bonus round for them. He mentions that he has sent the Apocalypse 9 to fight them, and whoever is left standing at the end will move forward, but they won't have their weapons, so they must use their brains and muscles to defeat them. Stu, Mike, and Dave block the door so no one can enter, but Axel arrives panicking since he can't find the gasoline. In the meantime, the man who punched Frostbite starts attacking Quiet, and he's about to kill her, but Frostbite gets up and saves her. However, he eventually overpowers her and kills her brutally by rubbing her face on the treadmill. He's about to crush Quiet's head with the dumbbells, but Raven saves her by crushing his head with an iron plate. Meanwhile, John tries to find Quiet, but Mayhem attacks him from behind, thinking he's one of the evil men Calypso sent to kill them. On the other side, Axel confesses that he needs the gasoline to function. So Dave and Mike realize it's a psychological issue and not a physical need, so they decide to have an intervention. Meanwhile, Quiet and Raven run into Vermin, who has already killed one of the attackers and hung him upside down. They realize she could be useful, so they invite her to come with them, and she gets all excited because it's the first time they're all hanging out together, but Quiet tells her not to make noise. On the other side, John and Mayhem try to find items they can use as weapons, but unfortunately, all the good stuff is already taken. John assures her that he has been surviving alone since he was a kid, but Mayhem notes that at the start of the apocalypse they had tons of supplies. He thinks she should have joined some group, but she tells him that she tried, but they were all bad people who tried to take advantage of her. Grim is out fishing, but as he tries to enter, the door is already locked. The guys start their intervention, and Axel shares his sad story of how his father ran away with his wife. He took a big loan, and to pay it back he started working as a hitman. He mentions how on one job he found a baby and he took her with him, which led to some of the best times in his life, but one night vultures attacked them and he lost the baby. He met a scientist who lied that he would help him find her, but instead the scientist turned him into the human car Axel, so he started relying on gasoline. Mike thinks he shouldn't be so dependent on gas because he was killing people even before it. Stu notes that if he still needs something, he should rely on them because they believe in his abilities even if he doubts himself. Their words motivate Axel, and he goes to face the Apocalypse 9 who run away seeing him charging at them. As the ladies take out more of Calypso's soldiers, Raven questions how is John selfish if he only wished to get his sister back, so Quiet thinks he should have at least told her. Raven tells her how he tried 15 times to run away from her city to reunite with Quiet, and she believes he has no brain, so they are both perfect for each other. Vermin starts sharing her romantic life and they are forced to hear it, but they hear a scream and Quiet wonders if it's John. Meanwhile, John and Mayhem trick one of the Apocalypse 9 with a tape recorder and they attack him from behind. They split his head open by pushing him onto the cutter, and as they celebrate their victory, they encounter a whole group of them. John thinks that if they stay together, they have a chance, but as he turns back, he sees Mayhem has already run away. They both start running and soon run into the girls, so they all get ready to fight, but Axel tells them to step aside as he takes on the whole group all on his own. Mike wonders if it was a good idea to help him remove his only weakness, and Sweet Tooth also arrives, telling Stu that the doctor said he's sterile so he will adopt him instead. Calypso congratulates them on winning the fight, but he warns that their unity will be tested as it will be every man for himself in the next round. John reconciles with Quiet, but as they try to leave the room, they find themselves in the wishing room near the well. John confesses to Calypso that he made another wish that day, but he wants to take it back, so Calypso thinks he must really want it. However, he agrees to fix it if they drink from the well. They follow his instructions and nothing happens, but he says it's all fixed now. Calypso sends a chest with a letter and fancy clothes so everyone can relax and dance at his party, But Quiet fears there might be some bad intentions. However, as she cuts open the chest, she finds the dress, so she realizes there is actually a party. Everyone gets ready for the dance party, but John gets mesmerized seeing Quiet in the red dress, so she shows him the holster she has for her hatchet. Mayhem thinks her dress doesn't fit well, but Quiet notices she's wearing it backwards, so she helps her fix it. Everyone goes to the hall, where Calypso tells them that they have a tradition to honor the death of autumn and the birth of winter, so they offer their blood as an offering. Everyone except Axel goes one by one, and he makes a cut on their palm which they rub against the tree. After that, he heals everyone using his powers and burns the tree, saying there has been much death and there will be more, but tonight they will party. They all start enjoying the party, but Sweet Tooth is the most excited as he starts dancing alone and even invites others to join him. Mike and Dave find a photo booth and they go inside, which makes Stu jealous, but they invite him as well, so he also joins them. John wants to enjoy the food, but Quiet is suspicious and thinks it might be poisoned. However, John wishes to enjoy the time. Vermin notices Grim sitting alone, so she tries to talk to him, but he says he can't get distracted. However, the other souls within him confess that he's just nervous because he fears she might not like them all. She thinks his other voices are cute, which makes Grim more comfortable, and they hold hands. Raven gets drunk and tells Axel about how she couldn't go to prom because this other girl snitched on her doing drugs. Grim asks Vermin for a dance and they all start enjoying themselves. Mike and Dave notice Stu eating chicken fingers, but he jokes that Dave would only want human fingers, which upsets him. Stu goes after him to apologize, but he finds him eating Frostbite's corpse. Stu realizes that Dave still eats people, and he offers to help him, but Dave accepts it's who he really is, and he can't allow Stu to expose him to Mike. He starts attacking Stu, but Stu fights back and bites his ass. Dave gets up and jumps at him, but Stu moves aside and Dave's face lands on a hook, which results in his death. Stu writes a fake note, making it look like Dave accidentally died. As Mike and Quiet enter the photo booth, they invite Mayhem as well. So she takes off the ribbon from her wrist and ties her hair. Axel notices it and remembers the baby he found years ago had the same ribbon. He asks where she found it, so she tells him she has had it since she was a child. Meanwhile, Grim and Vermin get intimate, but Sweet Tooth disturbs them, saying he didn't know Grim could land her. He accepts that Grim has won the bet, which upsets Vermin, since she thinks he only got close to her because of a bet. As Stu returns to the party, Mike asks if Dave forgave him, so he lies that he did, and Dave has some personal stuff he needs to take care of. Stu suggests getting some snacks, but Mike shows him their old foot bag he has kept all these years, so they start playing with it. John and Quiet start dancing to an emotional song while Axel continues to look at Mayhem, thinking about his past. Seeing the couple makes Raven jealous, and she thinks she only has a few more kills before she can reunite with her lover. Calypso suddenly releases smoke, making everyone sleepy. Before falling unconscious, Grim burns Harold, which upsets Sweet Tooth. Axel tells Mayhem that he didn't mean to abandon her like that, but she's unable to understand him. Later, as they all gain consciousness, they find themselves in their cars, but Quiet and John are in different cars. Calypso welcomes everyone to the lightning round, and he tells them to look at the envelope in their cars. He says they all have their own target, and to move to the next round they must eliminate that person. Mayhem gets Raven, while Axel luckily doesn't get Mayhem and instead has Quiet, which he thinks will be easy. John gets Axel, while Quiet's target is Mayhem, which devastates her. As they start the race, John uses his car's radio, and he luckily connects with Quiet, so she tells him she's in roadkill, but they realize they are exact replicas of the same car. She realizes Calypso wants to turn them against each other, and her target is Mayhem, so she doesn't know what she will do. Meanwhile, Calypso wakes up the remaining participants as he starts the trial for killing someone outside the official rounds. He shows them Dave's body and accuses Stu of eating people and killing Dave. He uses the bite mark as evidence, but Stu confesses he only bit Dave after Dave tried to kill him. He shares the whole story, but Calypso wonders why he planted the note, so Stu says he only did it so Mike doesn't ruin his memory of Dave. Meanwhile, Vermin tries to kill John, but he manages to get behind her van and start shooting her instead. So she releases a dangerous gas at his car. Raven uses her car's antenna to control lightning, and she blasts Vermin's van, which results in her passing the round, but instead of moving ahead, she decides to continue having fun. Quiet reunites with John and they try to fight Axel together, who charges at them. But John throws the hatchet at him, forcing him to go off track. At the school, Calypso finds Grim guilty of killing Harold, but Sweet Tooth stops him from killing Grim because he wants to do it with his own hands in the race. So Calypso instead takes all his souls. Quiet has Mayhem on her radar, but she hesitates to attack her. However, Raven comes from behind trying to shoot John's car. As he moves to the side, it hits Mayhem's car and she hits a concrete pole structure. Quiet and John rush to save her and they take her out of the car. But John tells Quiet to get back in her car as she needs to fulfill the mission. Raven gets ready to kill them all, but Axel notices it, and he sacrifices his own life to protect them. Calypso congratulates the remaining drivers as they have moved to the next round. In a flashback to when Mayhem went to make her wish, instead of wishing to be invincible, she actually wished to find a place where she belonged. When she wakes, she finds John and Quiet sleeping on the couch. She thanks them for saving her life, but they credit Axel, as he sacrificed himself to save them. She says she always felt he was a good guy, but she thinks she needs to quickly get her energy back for the next round. However, John tells her she's no longer part of the tournament. She says she can ride with them, but they advise her to rest, and she thanks Quiet for saving her. Sweet Tooth says his final goodbyes to Harold, but Stu tells him he would like to ride with Mike instead, which upsets him. Stu explains that Mike is his herald, so Sweet Tooth gives him permission to leave, but he warns that he won't hesitate to kill him in the finals since he comes from a long line of fathers killing their sons. John and Quiet encounter Raven, and they ask her how she could try to kill a kid, but she says she was aiming for John. Quiet questions if Kelly comes back, would she recognize the current Raven, but it makes Raven angry. Meanwhile, Mayhem notices Calypso going somewhere, so she follows him to his secret room where he's working on his big surprise for the final round. As Mayhem rushes back to tell Quiet and John, she hears them talking about her. John thinks Mayhem will be a liability in the finals, and Quiet agrees they can't allow her to be a part of this, so Mayhem packs her bag and tries to leave. Calypso's men catch Mayhem, and they take her back to him, where he asks why she would try to leave instead of cheering for her friends. She tells him they aren't her friends, but he mentions he can't allow her to leave since she saw what she wasn't supposed to see, so she should instead stay as his guest until the finals. Calypso arranges breakfast for the remaining contestants, but at the cafeteria, Sweet Tooth once again gets into a heated argument with Grim. Meanwhile, John and Quiet wake up and John reassures her that they will both win the tournament, despite the odds being against them. Mike gets rid of Dave's things as he bids his soul a final goodbye, but he knows if Dave was alive he would have consumed him as well. However, when he was alone, Dave had his back, so Stu assures him that he won't leave him now. John and Quiet think they need to convince Mayhem that she can't continue the race with them, but as they enter her room to talk to her, they find it empty. Suddenly, Calypso's men cover their heads and take them to the venue for the final round. The outsiders and insiders on opposite stands cheer for the drivers, but John and Quiet are just glad to see that Mayhem is fine. Calypso tells the audience how the drivers have shown that by working hard enough anyone can achieve their greatest wish. But Sweet Tooth doesn't understand what he means by wish, so Stu explains the whole reason why they are participating in the race, and why they went to the well. Calypso notes that whoever stays as the last person driving will win the race and get their wish fulfilled, and this day will be celebrated from this day on as the day of Twisted Metal. He starts the race and everyone starts aiming for their target, with Stu and Mike trying to take out John. So he tries to ask Quiet for help, but she's being chased by Sweet Tooth. However, Sweet Tooth notices Grim and decides to spare her for now, so she goes to help John. Meanwhile, Calypso tells Mayhem that her friends seem to be struggling, but she corrects him that they aren't her friends, so he agrees that these connections make one weak and true strength comes from relying on oneself. Quiet arrives to help John and their plan works as they take out Mike. As Sweet Tooth tries to kill Grim, he notices Raven, so he thinks he can finish her first. As he shoots at her, she creates a force field around her vehicle and releases grenades which blows up Sweet Tooth's van. However, Calypso doesn't like her method, and he uses his powers to destroy her force field to make things even for everyone. Both Grim and Raven start targeting John, so Quiet draws Grim away from him, allowing John to handle Raven. He goes around the containers and Raven thinks she can shoot his car with lightning, but she misses, and he also shoots a rocket at her, which she thinks has missed the target. It turns out to be the boomerang one, so it comes back and destroys her car. After that, both Quiet and John team up and they destroy Grim's bike. So he comes face to face with Sweet Tooth, who is also on foot now. Sweet Tooth overpowers him and tosses him in front of Roadkill, which crushes him underneath it. Calypso tells everyone that they are close to the end, but it wouldn't be interesting if they didn't have a final boss, so he drops a monster named Minion. John wonders if it's a monster or a machine, or maybe a combination of both, while Sweet Tooth gets ready to face it. He tries to get in his van, but the keys are inside, so he takes off the machine gun and starts shooting at it. However, it's super fast and easily evades all shots. He tries to punch the monster, but it crushes his hand before launching a barrage of kicks. Sweet Tooth gets up again, so it sends him flying into the container with a strong kick. It shifts its focus to Quiet and John, so they try to avoid its attacks, and John thinks Calypso might not plan to let anyone win the race. They launch a series of rockets and start shooting at it, but it doesn't do much damage. However, Quiet realizes there is a weak spot on its back. Quiet tries to launch another rocket, aiming for its weak spot, but it grabs the rocket with its hands before sending it back to her. John sacrifices his own car, which enrages Quiet, so she hits Minion with her car and activates the booster before jumping outside. It hits the container, leading to a huge explosion. However, since John and Quiet no longer have their cars, Stu, who is still alive, wins the competition. Mayhem, in the meantime, kills the guard next to her and threatens to shoot Calypso, so he allows her to leave, saying it won't matter anyway. Suddenly, the insider's side of the audience explodes, killing the spectators. Having a flashback all the way back to 1585 in Virginia, Calypso comes out of a well, which looks similar to the wishing well. In the early 2000s, he pitches an idea of a reality show where 16 combatants are sent to fight each other, saying humans are attracted to tournaments, so they will be thrilled to see the show. However, the executives think it will be too expensive, so he tells them they will bring their own cars. They wonder what the winner will get, and he answers they will get their greatest wish, but they fear they might ask for $1 billion, which they can't give, so Calypso notes in his game no one wins. They eventually turn down his proposal and make fun of it. So Calypso thinks perhaps he will wait for the right time for his tournament. Meanwhile, Quiet and Mayhem resuscitate John while someone drags Sweet Tooth's body. Mayhem starts driving the van, but they don't know where the dolls will be by now, so John gives them the map to his grandfather's cabin. Calypso asks what Stu wants, and we see that he wished for a place away from all this chaos with Mike. However, he gets teleported to space, and he sits there with Mike's dead body floating around. The trio finally reaches the cabin, but it's locked, so they enter through the window. John realizes it's being powered by future tech called solar power, and Mayhem enjoys the massage chair. John goes to his old room, where he and Quiet decide to leave their old life behind and start a fresh life with no cars and violence. They hear music sounds coming from downstairs and realize it won't just be them alone, as they have to take care of Mayhem as well. In the following days they clean the house, make it livable, and John teaches Mayhem how to read. He even takes her fishing, but Quiet decides to just shoot the fish instead, which the other two also find more convenient. One day as they are having lunch, the TV suddenly turns on where Calypso addresses everyone, telling them about the blast that killed the insiders at his tournament. He says it has united all walled cities, and they have found out the culprits. They show the picture of John and Quiet, revealing their wish to end all walls, and a fake video footage of them planting the bombs. Quiet realizes he used the prom dance to take their clothes and create that fake footage. The insiders declare war on outsiders, and their leader offers a reward to anyone who helps them find John and Quiet, while anyone who helps them will be treated as an enemy. At the end of the video message, Calypso tells John and Quiet that there is nowhere they can run, and suddenly Minion from earlier bursts into the cabin. Quiet tries to hit him with the hatchet, but he throws it back at her, which hits her in the shoulder. John grabs his gun and starts shooting at it, but it has no effect. It pushes him into his room, and as it tries to choke him, John tries to stop it and removes his mask, which shocks him as it's his sister Krista. He tries to make her remember him, but she can't, so he starts attacking her, but she once again overpowers him and starts punching his face. He tries to distract her with their family whistle, allowing him to hit her and escape. Someone suddenly starts shooting at her from outside the window while John goes to get Quiet and Mayhem. He tells them how the minion is actually Krista, but she once again comes to kill them, and luckily Stu arrives with his sniper. However, he has no ammo, so John grabs the gun and starts hitting her with the barrel. John gets an opening, and he stabs her weak spot with a hatchet, but he's unable to get himself to kill her as she looks like his sister. They escape in the van along with Stu, who tells them how he was sent to space, where he had plenty of free time, so he used it to work on himself. He worked out and learned the orbits of the pod, so he could crash it into the Great Lakes. John wonders how he knew about the cabin, so Stu tells him everyone knows because of how much he talked about it. Quiet wonders what they should do next, and Stu thinks they should join the outsiders in their fight against insiders, but Mayhem thinks they should run, while Quiet reminds them that there will be no safe place for them now. John notes the fight between outsiders and insiders will continue unless they take out the dealer, so he will kill Calypso for starting the war and turning his sister into a monster. Stu mentions how powerful Calypso is as he sent him to space and reanimated his sister's corpse. So Quiet thinks they will need help, but John believes they just need cars. Sweet Tooth in the meantime wakes up chained to a tow truck, still dazed but furious. He grabs the chain, threatening to drag the whole car into the lake. The man stays calm, saying he has strict orders from Sweet Tooth's father to bring him in. Confused, Sweet Tooth asks why now all of a sudden. The man tells him his father saw his performance in the tournament, and he's proud of him. That's the first 2 seasons of Twisted Metal completed. Rest assured, once more episodes are released, this video will be updated. As always, have a good day, and I'll catch you on the next one.